Welcome back, everybody, to the Rams franchise, where today we are going to be simming through a few seasons in order to progress this series ahead. Before we start doing any simming, though, and moving ahead, let's take a look back at what we did this last season. We went 15-2 in the regular season, good enough to have the best record in the NFL. Then in the postseason, we went on a bit of a run and beat the Chiefs in Super Bowl 61 to make us back-to-back Super Bowl champions. I thought we had a great year on offense. I would have loved to have seen Josh Rosen throw a few less interceptions. Now, a few of them were my fault, but he also just didn't have his best year. The offensive line remained healthy the entire season. You don't really see that very often. Cooper Kupp may have only played in 14 games, but that did not stop him from leading the team in catches, yards, and receiving touchdowns. Antonio Gibson, he had a solid year on the ground. I would have liked to see more out of Montel Rodriguez, though, and have that 1-2 punch being a dynamite 1-2 punch and not just a good one. The defense also put together a good season. Byron Young, he led the way in tackles for loss and in sacks. He actually set a career high in sacks, getting 13 and a half of them this past year. At linebacker, Devin White led the way in tackles, getting 129 of them, and he just does a little bit of everything. And then you can't forget about our secondary that is improving every single year. Addison Caver and Nolan Walker were really good this last season, and Caver, of course, had the big game in the Super Bowl and was the Super Bowl MVP. The first thing that we have to do this offseason is take a look at regression. The three players I want to focus on are Gibson, Kupp, and Mike Williams. Now, Gibson and Kupp should be fine, or at least another season, but Mike Williams, he is right near that cliff of not being any good anymore. And we do have a lot of guys, including him, that are set to be free agents. Josh Rosen, Cooper Kupp, Mike Williams, Sky Moore, Walker Little, Steve Avila, Tevin Jenkins, Eric Armstead, Tim Settle Jr., Kobe Turner, Javon Kinlaw, Byron Young, Brian Asamoah II, Michael Hoyt, Jason Taylor II, and Jonathan Abram are all set to be free agents. The first player I want to try and keep around is our quarterback, Josh Rosen. I want to see what he's able to do while we sim through some seasons and sim through some games. So we offer him a 3-year, $100 million deal, and he accepts. So we will have a chance to keep our franchise quarterback. And obviously, we want to keep around Cooper Kupp, who has been with the Rams his entire career, and he is now 34 years old, getting close to the end of his career. And he is going to be sticking around for at least 2 more seasons. Jason Taylor II, unlike the previous 2 players, he does not want to be here. His interest level is extremely low. But despite that, I thought why not offer him a long-term contract anyway, and he did end up declining it. So we had to use our franchise tag on him in order to keep him around for another season. And the hope with him is that we are able to come to a long-term agreement next offseason. Byron Young, he plays at a very valuable position, and he plays really well. He has gotten better in every single season of his career, so yeah, we want to keep him around. A 4-year, $92 million deal going his way, and he takes it. Now, we also have gone ahead and extended Tevin Jenkins, giving him 2 years, $20 million in total to be our starting right guard, and yes, he is going to be sticking around as well. The easiest decision we made the entire offseason was to pick up the 5th-year option on Addison Caver's rookie contract. A complete no-brainer there. We did get turned down by a few guys that I would like to see back, like Mike Williams, Steve Avila, and Kobe Turner. And really the main focus of the entire offseason was to keep this same core group of players together. So we didn't end up doing a ton in free agency other than keeping our own players, like Mike Williams, who agreed to a 1-year deal. Steve Avila and Kobe Turner ended up taking 2-year deals. So not really a ton of new additions in free agency. We did bring in a wide receiver in Craig Garnes, who is really fast and is expected to be a special teams player for us. Josh Jones, he's been on the team before. He'll be a backup tackle for us. We also brought in Devontae Wyatt to be a backup interior defensive lineman, and Tuli Tuipulotu to be a backup edge rusher for us. But not really a ton of moves were made in free agency to make this roster better. I wanted to focus on keeping the core we have together and mainly make our additions through the draft. Manny Goodwin was somebody I had my eye on pretty early in the draft process, an athletic safety. I knew that Jason Taylor II's contract would be coming up soon. Jordan Fuller was getting older, so he was somebody I really wanted to go and get, and we had to make a trade in order to make that happen. And Manny Goodwin, the reason that I'm really interested in him, he's got top 5 talent in the draft. He's really athletic. He's got great zone coverage, and he has a high awareness rating. So a lot of things you just like seeing out of a safety. He does clearly need some work in certain categories like the man coverage. That has to get a lot better. It ends up being a 60 rating, and his injury rating is also a little low, but nothing that is completely like wrecking his career in the near future, I would say. The other draft pick I want to point out that we made was in the 3rd round. We took a chance on Quan Brennan, an athletic interior defensive lineman who is really similar to Emmett Spearman. He's got a great 40-yard dash, a good vertical, really just an amazing athlete for somebody of his size. He's got good finesse moves, awareness, and I took a chance on him here. He did end up having hidden development. Now, he does need a lot of work before he's going to be a good player, but he is somebody that you just can take and stash as a backup on your roster and have him develop as a backup. You don't need him to play right away. We didn't have the greatest draft. We really only got the 2 hidden development players, and then the other 4 are mostly just going to be backups, or they will end up on the practice squad. So not an amazing offseason for us, but we did end up returning all 11 starters from the previous season on offense and on defense. So yes, we returned all 22 starters from a team that just won a Super Bowl and a Super Bowl the year before that as well. With that in mind, a team that is returning all 22 starters and has won a Super Bowl just last year, the goal is clearly to try and win the Super Bowl again and make it 3 in a row. It's going to be tough, and I don't know how the simming is going to go, but we'll see if we can make that happen. The season begins with us taking on our biggest rivals in this series, the 49ers, and we beat them pretty easily in Week 1, winning 24-7. Antonio Gibson had 115 yards on the ground and averaged 5 yards per carry. But the main takeaway, at least in my opinion, from this game was the play of the defense, especially Byron Young, who we just extended. He had 3.5 sacks in Week 1. In Week 2, we beat the division rival Cardinals this time, winning 31-10. Gibson, he led the way on offense again. He had 2 touchdowns on the ground this time around. And the defense really got after Kyler Murray as a complete unit. Everybody got to him. So at 2-0, with 2 wins coming over division rivals, we were in a great spot, and we were able to keep that up, beating the Cowboys 24-21, a closer game this time around. Josh Rosen, he threw 3 touchdowns and was pretty good in this one. But 2 of those touchdowns went to Cooper Kupp, who had to be the player of the game. 165 yards receiving on 7 catches for the 34-year-old is pretty impressive. We did end up losing the next week to the Ravens 22-14. It wasn't really the fault of Josh Rosen. I would mostly blame the defense that just couldn't get off the field. We had no answer for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens' run game. So at 3-1, we had a difficult opponent on our hands again, this time in the Vikings, and we were able to bounce back in a big way, winning 42-14, outscoring them by a lot in that second half. What was it, 32-0 in the second half? Antonio Gibson had 3 touchdowns, and the defense ended up picking off Andy Hayes 3 times. So we were off to a good start in this season at 4-1. We had an early bye week though, and we did have some bad news during that bye week, and that was that Emmett Spearman had a partially torn ACL and was going to be out for a while. He had gotten off to a great start. He had 4 sacks in the early going and looked to be on his way to having a career year. That's likely not going to be happening with him missing as much time as he will. We ended up continuing the winning ways here in the early going, beating the Panthers 31-21, and that moved us to 5-1, right ahead of a big matchup against the rival 49ers again. If we were able to win this one, we would start to pull away in the division, and unfortunately we did not win it. We lost in overtime 23-17 to the 49ers, who got a bit of revenge, and that put them right behind us in the race for the NFC West. We did end up winning our next 3 games, beating the Seahawks 20-17, the Lions 41-14, and the Seahawks 27-24. The best news we got so far this season is that Manny Goodwin is a superstar X Factor rookie, which is going to be great for the future of the defense. At 8-2, we had a big matchup against the Steelers, who were at 7-3, and we beat them by just 1 point, winning 21-20, a very high-scoring fourth quarter compared to the rest of the game, and that improved us to 9-2, as we are winners of 4 straight and look to be well on our way to making the postseason. So we decided to just sim to the end of the year, and we won the majority of our games down the stretch. We did lose 1 to the Packers, but it was a great season for us. We ended up going 14-3, finishing with not only the best record in the NFC, but the best record in the entire NFL. And here is a look at who made the postseason. You saw in the NFC, and here is the AFC. But yeah, it was a good season for us, and we should go through the stats. Josh Rosen, he cut down on the turnovers, only throwing 6 interceptions all year long, 32 touchdowns for him on the year, a good completion percentage, so he looks like he is going to be worth the money that we ended up giving him. Melvin Francois had a difficult year, giving up 17 sacks in 17 games. He is set to be a free agent at the end of the year. We'll have to make a decision on him. Michael Kirkpatrick ended up having a great year. He had 116 catches, 1,376 yards, and 14 touchdowns, leading the way in all 3 of those categories on our team. Not a good year from the rush offense, but Gibson did have 15 touchdowns on the ground. On defense, Byron Young, he set a career high again in sacks in the season, getting up to 15.5 of them. Emmett Spearman got to 8.5, second on the team despite not really playing for the majority of this season. Devin White may be getting a bit older, but he is still the leader on this defense in tackles, getting 120 of them in the regular season. Addison Caver continues his great play, and he looks to be on his way to maybe being a Hall of Famer. I know it's early, but he is getting a lot of interceptions. He's won a Super Bowl MVP, and he has us right back here in the postseason, getting ready to take on the Atlanta Falcons in the divisional round. Can we beat them and advance on here in the postseason? We fell behind early, but made a big comeback in the second half, scoring 21 unanswered points in the second half, and we pitched a second half shutout to get the win 24-21 over the Falcons. Josh Rosen did not play his best game, but he played a good enough game to help us get the win, and the defense did a great job in that second half. So we are now just 1 win away from appearing in our 3rd straight Super Bowl, and the only team that has a chance to stop us is the Minnesota Vikings. Can we get the job done to make a 3rd straight Super Bowl? We have done it. We have beaten the Minnesota Vikings 27-24 in a nail-biter, and are going to be advancing on to our 3rd straight Super Bowl. Antonio Gibson had 2 touchdowns and had nearly 100 yards on the ground. The defense did a good job overall in this one, going up against a great Minnesota offense, with Nolan Walker getting an interception. And the Super Bowl 62 matchup is the same as Super Bowl 61. It'll be us taking on the Kansas City Chiefs in a rematch. Can we beat them again? We cannot. We end up getting shut out in the second half, and the Chiefs pulled away in the fourth quarter, scoring 18 points in the fourth quarter, winning 38-21. Josh Rosen played a pretty good game. He just unfortunately got sacked 6 times, with 3 of them getting allowed by Melvin Francois, who had a really bad season. I think we have seen the end of him in Los Angeles, at least with the Rams. Jarway Saunders, he balled out against us. We didn't do a good enough job against him and the Kansas City offense, especially late, and we got nothing out of our ground game, only 18 yards provided by Antonio Gibson. So the Chiefs end up getting revenge, and they win Super Bowl 62. And we will now have to head into the offseason and try to make this team good enough to win another Super Bowl despite us getting older. Cooper Kupp is declining even more, and Mike Williams is not going to be a very good player anymore, so I don't think we are going to be bringing him back. Gibson, he also got hit really hard by regression. He is not going to be the same player that he once was for us in this franchise. So on to the re-signing period. The first thing we decided to do was pick up the 5th-year option for Nolan Walker, much like we did with Addison Caver, a pretty easy decision to keep those two together. Jason Taylor II, do you want to agree to a long-term deal and stick around here? He does not. He ends up declining it, so we had to make a difficult decision to franchise tag him again, which we're going to do here in a bit. But first, we're going to end up trying to extend Justice Branch, who was an undrafted rookie at one point on this team, and has developed into a solid backup option for us that maybe could start if you need him to, and he ends up taking a 3-year deal to be a rotational player for us. Devin White is also set to be a free agent, and obviously we want to bring him back. He has been a big part of our defense for the entire series just about, and he ends up declining this 3-year offer we gave him. So how about Lonnie Culliver? I know he's been a backup for us these last couple of years, but he's got some good ratings, and him and Sammy Patton could be a good linebacking duo. We offered him a little bit less than what we offered Devin White, and Lonnie Culliver also ends up declining. So both middle linebackers are going to be testing out free agency. Bobby Brown III, I know he hasn't developed into the star interior defensive lineman that I wanted him to, but he's been pretty good. We offered him a 3-year deal to be a Ram for a while longer, and he ends up declining. So a lot of guys have declined us. And Melvin Francois, who allowed 17 sacks in 17 games, was somebody that I thought maybe we can lowball him and at least bring in some competition. And he just said, no, I'm going to move on as well. Just go somewhere else. So a bunch of players declined us. We have a lot of players that are going to be testing out free agency. Ben Portis, Antonio Gibson, Mike Williams, Vernon Hitchens, Keenan Russell, Melvin Francois, Josh Jones, Brian Sandrich, Jalen Redmond, Bobby Brown III, Tuli Tuipulotu, Devin White, Lonnie Culliver, and Andrew Booth will all test out free agency. There are some that I do want to bring back, but there are some that we will not be bringing back, like Mike Williams, who ran his core series, helped us win 2 Super Bowls, and it was just time for us to move on from him. Like I said earlier, we are going to be franchise tagging Jason Taylor II, but this time it is not to keep him around for another year. We are going to be tagging and trading him to the Houston Texans, close to where he wants to be. And in return, we get a 1st and 4th round pick in this year's draft. We did also send a 6th and 7th in this year's draft along with Jason Taylor II to the Texans. It was a good run with us and Jason Taylor II. He just unfortunately did not want to be here for the long haul. So we decided to get what we could for him, and we got back the 12th pick in the 1st round in this year's draft. And we will move ahead with Manny Goodwin being the starting free safety and Justice Branch being a key backup for us at free safety and also strong safety. And with that 12th pick, I hope to get a really good player that can help this team out. But we move on to free agency, where we were really, again, focused on keeping our core group of players together. Ben Portis, he's been a good backup quarterback to have on this team, so we decided to bring him back on a 1-year deal. He had no interest from other teams, unfortunately for him. Antonio Gibson has been brought back to be a backup behind Montel Rodriguez. Vernon Hitchens, he took a 2-year deal to be some depth for us at wide receiver. Taylor Decker, he is the lone free agent that we ended up signing that was new to the team. He'll be a veteran tackle option. We did, of course, let Melvin Francois walk, so we had to have somebody that could play left tackle for us. Devin White and Bobby Brown III have been brought back, along with Andrew Booth, who took a cheap 1-year deal. So yeah, Melvin Francois, he is going to be heading to Miami, where he will be their starting left tackle. Good luck to him. Brian Sandrich, who somehow went up to superstar development, has decided to head to Las Vegas to be their starting center. And Lonnie Culliver took a 4-year deal to head to Indianapolis to be a Colt. With cap space starting to be a problem for us, thanks to all the big contract extensions we have been handing out, I knew that the draft would become even more important to us if we wanted to keep this team at a championship level. So I did a lot of work on this draft class and knew that there were not really a ton of players that were projected to go super early that I wanted. So instead of picking at 12, we traded back 2 times in the 1st round, moving all the way back to pick 20, picking up a 3rd, 4th, and 5th in next year's draft in the process. And at pick 20, there was a player I had in mind. It is a big left tackle in Brandon Redmond out of UCLA, who is 6'8", 321, He's not only just a big dude, but a great athlete, really strong, and it just looks like he's going to be a star down the line and maybe even be really good right away. His finesse blocking will need some work, but we do take him at pick 20 in the first round, and he's got hidden development with 90 strength. He ends up being a 74 overall, and he could start for us on day one. If he has a good preseason, we will probably end up rolling with him and then making Taylor Decker the backup. I did debate trading out of pick 31 and moving out of the first round altogether, but instead of doing that, we ended up taking a chance on a really fast wide receiver whose last name is Ross and first name begins with a J. It is not John Ross, but Jose Ross, a 21-year-old wide receiver out of LSU who has star potential. The question is, can he live up to that? He does have hidden development, 96 speed, 96 change of direction, 97 excel, and he's got a higher overall even than Redmond. He's a 76 overall, and he could be a day one starter for us. With him, and then you have the vet and Cooper Kupp and a lot of younger guys, our receiving core is probably going to be pretty good again, even with the decline of Cooper Kupp and losing Mike Williams. We did make a big trade with the rival 49ers, giving up a lot of picks to get their second round pick, and it was in order to take a tight end with a lot of promise in BJ Scioli, who had a really good combine and pro day. He's got round one talent, was projected to go in the second or third round, a run block, a awareness. He's got good hands, good route running. Now his development trait only ended up being normal, and that was really the only thing that I could say was bad about him. He's a 77 overall at only 21 years old. He's got good speed, good hands, and he's a good blocker. He'll be a good second tight end and a half behind Michael Kirkpatrick, with our other tight end declining being OJ Howard. He's starting to be more of a tight end 3 instead of a tight end 2. Myron Murphy and Cody Davison are a pair of players we took out of Georgia that both have hidden development. Myron Murphy is a linebacker that is going to replace Lonnie Culliver, and Cody Davison is going to be a really good backup center, replacing Brian Sandridge. I think we did a much better job in this year's draft than we did in last year's draft. The best news that we got out of the preseason is that Michael Kirkpatrick wanted to help out BJ Scioli, and he did that by helping him increase his dev trait up to star dev. And remember, the only thing I said that was holding him back was him being normal dev, and now he's not normal dev anymore, so guess nothing is holding him back. We did make a trade at the end of the preseason, sending Andrew Booth Jr. to the Eagles for a 5th round pick in the 2030 draft. Booth is going to be the Eagles' #1 cornerback. Good luck to him. And for us, we get to keep some younger cornerbacks and continue to develop them to be some solid backups for us. You will notice that we are going to be starting Redmond at left tackle over Decker. He allowed 0 sacks in the preseason, and I guess it means he's probably going to be pretty good out there, at least I hope. Better than Melvin Francois. We have a new starting free safety, and Jose Ross is going to be the starting wide receiver 2. The goal this year, it is to try and win the Super Bowl. We have made it to 3 straight Super Bowls. Can we make it to 4? And this time avenge our last Super Bowl loss that we suffered to the Chiefs. So it is a rematch again against these Chiefs who we have met in the last 2 Super Bowls. Can we beat them here? We do. We blow them out in week 1, winning 42-21. They did make a comeback attempt there in the 4th quarter, but it was too little too late. So a big win here in week 1 over the defending Super Bowl champion Chiefs, with Josh Rosen throwing 5 touchdowns for them, went to Cooper Kupp, who despite getting older is still a really good player. And Caver, he ended up picking off Patrick Mahomes. He's done that a few times now in this series. We are winners of 3 straight to begin the year, beating the Saints in a low-scoring game, and then the Dolphins in a high-scoring shootout. And Josh Rosen, he is off to a really great start. 11 touchdowns, no interceptions over the first 3 games. He's got an 80% completion percentage. Can he keep this up, though? We're taking on a 3-0 team in the 49ers, a big game here, and we do end up beating them, blowing them out. We went on a 17-0 run in the 4th quarter, and Rosen, he threw 3 more touchdowns and is still yet to throw an interception this year. Michael Kirkpatrick, he caught 3 of them, and had a big game. He's off to a good start along with Cooper Kupp. Byron Young, he sacked Brock Purdy 3.5 times to begin the regular season last year, and he sacked Purdy 3 times here. The 49ers did get revenge in week 6 and ended our 5-0 start to this season by beating us 28-10. So we are now 5-1, tied for the best record in the NFC West. And we are going to be simming through a few more games here out of the bye week, and we'll see how we do in them. We end up winning 3 in a row, so we do bounce back and are now at 8-1, beating the Jets, Vikings, and Seahawks. And if you're wondering about the 49ers, they did just lose a game. So we are now on top of the NFC West all by ourselves. And Josh Rosen, he has still not thrown an interception, up to 24 touchdowns with no interceptions. He is right now the MVP frontrunner. How about that? We got a big game here, taking on the Patriots, who are on a winning streak of their own. And we end up beating them, the Cardinals, Seahawks, and Bills, and have just gone on a great 7-game win streak and have already clinched a playoff spot at 12-1. And with that out of the way, we are just going to be simming to the end of the year, and we'll see how we do. We end up winning 10 in a row, but do fall in week 18 to the Buccaneers. So we do end the regular season with a loss, but it was a great year. 15-2, easily the best record in the NFC and the best record in the NFL. In the AFC, the Ravens had the best record. The Chiefs do end up making it to the postseason again. Maybe we are going to play them again in the Super Bowl, but I guess we'll have to see. Josh Rosen did end up throwing a few interceptions, but he was able to limit it to just 5 of them. And while doing that, he had the most passing yards in the NFL, the most passing touchdowns, and the highest completion percentage in the NFL. He has won the MVP. So not only is he a multiple-time Super Bowl champion, he is now an MVP award winner. Tevin Jenkins, he put together a great year, giving up 0 sacks, even though he played in over 1,000 downs. And he was really the bright spot for the offensive line that was just okay this season. Michael Kirkpatrick and Cooper Kupp led the way as far as pass catchers go. Jamal Holcomb and Jose Ross were not that bad for being 3rd and 4th options. The ground game was disappointing. Montel Rodriguez, who is set to be a free agent at the end of the year, only played in 10 games. He missed multiple games due to different injuries. It wasn't just one injury. He got injured multiple times. So we'll have to figure something out in the offseason on what we want to do at running back. Byron Young again set a career high in sacks. He got 17.5 of them in this season. Devin White and Sammy Patton both had over 100 tackles, with Devin White getting just 1 more than Sammy Patton to lead the team. Not that many interceptions made by our defense this year, or takeaways by our defense in general, but Nolan Walker, he did have 3 of them to lead the team. The playoffs are here, and we are going to be taking on the 49ers in the divisional round, our biggest rivals, who did hand us one of our 2 losses in the regular season, so they are capable of beating us, and they nearly beat us. We barely hang on here and win 17-15 to advance on to the NFC Championship game. It was a tough one for Josh Rosen, the MVP. He threw 3 interceptions. Luckily, he did run in a touchdown along with Montel Rodriguez, and the defense did most of the heavy lifting here, giving up only 15 points in total, and all of them came in the 4th quarter, so they nearly collapsed. They must have been running out of steam, but they do hang on, and we hang on, and are going to be taking on the Chicago Bears in the NFC Championship game, a team that has not been to a Super Bowl for quite some time. We'll see if they can get the job done here. They cannot. We are able to beat them, and we'll be advancing on to our 4th straight Super Bowl. We beat them 35-28. A much better game here out of Josh Rosen, who threw 4 touchdowns, had 433 yards passing. A lot of those yards ended up going to Jose Ross, the rookie out of LSU, who had 133 receiving yards, also a big game out of Jamal Holcomb. So the defense, it got the job done in the divisional round, and the offense is able to get the job done in the NFC Championship game, and we are now in the Super Bowl, getting ready to play in our 4th straight. This time we are going to be taking on the Los Angeles Chargers in an all-LA battle for Super Bowl 63. Can we win our 3rd Super Bowl of this franchise? We do end up winning 24-13 and are now winners of 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls. 24-13 ends up being the final score. We didn't do much in the second half, but neither did the Chargers. Josh Rosen didn't really go off, but he wasn't that bad. And really nobody went off in this game. It must have just been a pretty low-scoring, regular Super Bowl, nothing crazy. But we do end up winning it, and the Super Bowl MVP is the same guy who won the regular season MVP. It is Josh Rosen, who has now won 3 Super Bowls and has won an MVP. And he's also a 2-time Super Bowl MVP, a great career he's had. and I am interested to see how he ends up finishing it out. So we are going to come back to this and sim some more seasons and see how Josh Rosen is able to finish out his career. I don't know if that'll be in the next one or if we're going to have to make it 2. I guess we'll see. Thanks for watching this one, though, and I'll see you with what's next.